Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew, and I'd like to welcome to the show tonight the founder of forbiddenknowledge.com and the host of Gaia's Deep Space, Billy Carson. How are you tonight, Billy?
Fantastic, man. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Great. I appreciate you coming. And I thought we'd start with a little bit about your background and what brought you to where you're at today.
Okay. Well, I'll start off with what got me here first, and I'll talk a little bit about the background. When I was a young kid living in Miami, Florida, in this place called Opelika, it's like a subdivision area of Miami. It's pretty close to the Opelika airport, and I would go out in my backyard and watch the planes go over, and you would see airplanes go over every 15 to 20 minutes, and it would take them a few minutes to clear the horizon. Well, this one day I went out in the back and looked up, and this giant orb came across where the airplane, the same flight path as the airplanes, but it flew across the horizon in seconds instead of minutes. So right away, being 7 years old, I knew right away that that was not an airplane. I didn't know about UFOs. I didn't know about aliens. I didn't know, those words weren't even in my vocabulary, to be honest with you. I just knew that what I saw wasn't normal. Then it came back and hovered above me. Now I can estimate approximately 200 meters above me, and then flew out the same way that it came in. So the next day I went to Rainbow Park Elementary School, which is right down the street from my house, literally 7 houses away, and pulled out all the Encyclopedia Britannica. This is like 1977. So, where there's no Google, there's 4 channels on TV, there's no cable TV. And so I went and got the encyclopedias, pulled them down, all the aerospace books, and I started looking and researching. Literally from then is when I started my research into this phenomenon and what I might have been able to see, what I saw. And I couldn't find anything in those books. And that basically, continuously led me on the path to where I am today. Now, you fast forward many decades later, I've become a person that is really heavily involved in the community, in the conscious community, and also in UFOs and everything else and anomalies. And so I started to get a lot of attention because for whatever reason, I started to become very popular with the community because of the information that I was putting out was so astounding, but also verifiable to a certain degree. I mean, nothing is 100% verifiable, but it was a lot of good source links and a lot of good content that had people scratching their heads, which then caught the eye eventually of Gaia, which at the time was mostly just doing yoga videos and wanted to switch over into doing a conscious streaming network, kind of like a conscious Netflix. And 1 year, about 4 years ago now, I went to the Conscious Life, 3 years ago, I'm sorry, I went to the Conscious Life Expo in LA and ran into the founder of Gaia, and he called me by name, Forbidden Knowledge, come over here. I was like, whoa. At that time, people didn't know who I was yet like that, And he brought me in a little side room that they had released out for the show and had me talking to his director of marketing and his CEO. And they said that they would like to, potentially work something out with me. And I was thinking, okay, yeah, A week later, they called me up, flew me out there, and they grilled me in a lot of questions. And seemed like it worked out because they ended up putting me in Deep Space Season 1, Deep Space Season 2, Ancient Civilizations, which is a new series that they just came out with. And I'm hoping to be on Ancient Civilization Season number 2. And I've also been on George Noory, Beyond Belief twice, as well as I've been on Sean Stone's The Buzzsaw talk show with him on Gaia as well several times. So it worked out pretty good. And now we're looking at potentially trying to get my own show on Gaia, which would be phenomenal, Forbidden Knowledge with Billy Carson. So between that and the fact that I started a group called the United Family of Anomaly Hunters with Thomas Jensen, I think we co-founded it together. And that made international news. We literally are on a hunt for evidence of past, present, and maybe even future life that can be coming in terms of new settlements in our solar system. And we think that we have found that through a lot of the images that we've analyzed through NASA and the European Space Agency and the Indian Space Agency. So now we've got the United Family of Anomaly Hunters, which is about 14 groups of us that we've now downloaded over 1 million images and documented over 50,000 anomalies. So, we've got a lot going on here. I mean, that, and now I'm an author with a book, The Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, which is just now released. And so many more exciting things on now. I'm speaking at all these events. Everybody's calling me to come speak at these events all over the place, all over the world. It's pretty exciting, man. Everything's going very, very good.
Yeah, it is exciting. Yeah, I know you're very busy, and that's awesome. I'm going to definitely leave the links to everything you got going on in our description. And I'd like to start with some ancient origins. There's so many theories of where we came from, whether it be that we were seeded here, or we were created here, or that we evolved from the smallest, molecules, and we evolved from fish. Um, I'd like to hear some of your theories on where we came from.
Mhm. I'd say it's very interesting because over time, the more you research this stuff, the deeper you get into it, the more you realize that you don't know everything, and there's a little bit more to the picture. So what I've done is I've been able to, at least I think I have, put together a picture of what may have happened over some time. Now, when you dig into the real ancient past, I'm talking about super ancient. Forget 10,000 years ago. Forget the last ice age. I'm talking about, let's go, back 2 or 3 processional periods, star-wise. And now you're looking into times where we may have had, like the Mayan state, 4 worlds already that have happened on this planet. And now we're headed into the 5th. Meaning that civilization may have risen and fallen on this planet 4 times. And when you look into the Indian Vedas and some of the more ancient texts, you see that these civilizations appear to have risen and fallen over time, as well as when you look and research the Kali Yuga, all the yugas. Right now we may be in the Tetra Yuga, headed back into the Silver Age, which will take us back into the Golden Age in so many thousands of years. But I think that these Anunnaki that are talked about and spoken about in these ancient Sumerian tablets are the same people that are spoken about in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, which are much older than the Sumerian tablets, as well as the Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Indian Vedas. I think they're all the same people, these same ancient beings that came here. But I think that they arrived here about 450,000 years ago at the time that we were in a fallen state again. So I honestly do think that we may, because now all these weird bodies have been found all over the planet. And I think that we may have another type of a species of humanoid may have risen to a high level of civilization, and for whatever reason, whether it be war, whether it be geological disaster, or maybe even both, had fallen again. And maybe over 2 or 3 generations after you fall, it's like going back into the caves. And I think the Anunnaki arrived here at a time where us now, our primitive selves, were back in a fallen state. I don't think that we look the way we did now, because I think they did genetically modify us. So some people like to say the Anunnaki created humans, but I don't think that they created humans. What I think happened was, based on the text, I'm talking about the Atra Esis, and I'm also talking about the Enuma Elish. And the reason why I'm talking about those texts is because those texts were translated way back in the 1800s, long before Zecharia Sitchin was even born. Okay, because there's a big rumor that he's the only one who translated these tablets, and that's a lie.
Right.
These tablets have been translated for hundreds of years before him. He utilized those in his books and came up with his own concept. But those tablets talk about a war that was going to happen in super ancient times between the Anunnaki themselves, without humans, because of the workload. And that's when one of the Anunnaki beings suggested that they genetically modify or add their essence to the existing hominid on this planet. So it was a genetic modification. And the evidence of this is in chromosome number 2 in the human genome, because in chromosome number 2, there's been a telomere to telomere fusion that scientists have found documented that was done in ancient times, but not ancient enough to be evolution. It was a targeted mutation that was done to the human body, and they put these telomere caps on each end of this chromosome number 2. Again, more evidence that these Anunnaki beings genetically tampered with. And I think what they also did was they disconnected a lot of our DNA, because I truly believe that the ancient man, the ancient version of the Homo sapien, was smarter in many ways. Maybe not technologically, but more in sync with the universe, more in touch with the frequency of the earth, able to harness resonant frequencies and understand what's going on based on the magnetite crystals in the brain and receiving signals from space and the planet. Just like when there's a tsunami coming in, the wild animals, long before it arrives, head up to the hills or the mountains. Why? Because they're receiving that information. In the same way, I think that the ancient man had that same capability, but a lot of that has been disconnected, and we've been programmed to worship these beings, or any type of a being that appears to be more technologically advanced than us or more spiritually advanced than us. And that's another gene that was discovered. So my answer to you basically is I believe that the Anunnaki arrived here during the fallen time of man, will be a time when we fell again, which is, when we're talking about, it could be tens of thousands of years, but in geological time scales, that's a blink of an eye. They happened to arrive here at the right time, in the right pickings. They've genetically modified us, and they got us to where we are right now. But the effect of what they did to us is still evident till this very day. We're still looking for something to worship. We still feel like we're missing something. And a lot of our DNA has been disconnected, and we're just now starting to rediscover that DNA is a digital medium and also a Wi-Fi medium. DNA can send and receive Wi-Fi type signals, and it also can store zeros and ones, bits of data and information, which is why they're making computer chips out of DNA now. It's an amazing storage capacity. One human body can store all the information that's contained in the entire universe, which is incredible. So that's my answer. I just think that we've been genetically modified, around 200,000 years ago, by these Anunnaki beings before they were going to go to this war. They ended up going to war anyway and using us as cattle to help them fight these crazy wars, which is evident in the book of Deuteronomy in the Bible, where they're sending people to this town and that town, fighting back and forth over resources and land, using humans as cattle. But that's what happened in my personal opinion. So they got us at a fallen time period and genetically modified us to be their slaves.
Now, we used to, it seems, have a regular contact with these beings. And like you said, there have been cataclysms over the years and, it may have destroyed records, but what stopped that contact?
Well, the last Pyramid War, which is what is where we kind of lost complete contact in a way. Not complete. Certain people still have been in contact, the elites have. But during this last Pyramid War with Amun-Ra, who's also known as Marduk, this guy was very arrogant. He's one of the most brutal rulers of the Anunnaki pantheon. He tried, the first war he started was because he took over the kingship of Egypt, or ancient Chem, ahead of his planned allotment due to the processional period. He didn't want to wait for the Pisces to kick in. He wanted to jump start it and take over earlier, and that caused the battle. He was fighting with his brother Thoth so much, his brother Thoth left. His dad told him, look, you go get out of here. Go down to the Yucatan Peninsula, go down to the Americas and start a civilization over there, which he did. But this guy, Amun-Ra, again, was doing so many things that started so many wars with his brethren. He was the one that literally had all of the statues and the hieroglyphs of the gods, which are his relatives, defaced. It has nothing to do with modern times and people trying to knock their nose off because they didn't want to know what race they were and all of that. This goes way, way back. I know this because I've been to Egypt. So this is the true story. This caused more wars to want to pop up. And the last one was a very big one. And it most likely might have been even nuclear, because the evidence of it can be found in Mohenjo-Daro in the Indus Valley, where buildings and sand is turned to glass. Even in Giza, if you put your hand down deep enough into the sand, you'll pull up balls of glass. This can only be caused by extremely, extremely high temperatures, 3,000 plus degree temperatures, which may be evidence of weapons blast. And this can be found all over that region. These vitrified remains of structures and buildings and even dead bodies still laying in the street with excessive radiation still in them till this very day. So that's one of the main reasons that I think that a lot of them got out of here, was because of this last war. I think it decimated a lot of the areas. I think that it brought what they were calling an evil wind, which most likely was probably some type of radiation or whatever weapons signature residue that was left behind, whatever type of weapon it might have been. It was deadly because people's nails were falling out, their eyes were bleeding, their hair was falling out. This is all signs of radiation sickness. So I think that's when a lot of them got the heck out of here. And I think that's what kind of really started to break off the contact with the Anunnaki, like where we have these gods living with us and we're worshiping them as gods. I think that's the time where it kind of snapped and they left. And a few small remnants did stay and hide out. But I think that's when a majority of them got out of here.
So do you believe there were different races involved in this war? Different factions?
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt. You had the Ijiji working class Anunnaki, which were different types of beings. They weren't quote unquote slaves, or at least they thought they weren't.
Right.
But they were different types of beings. There's even an account of one of these Anunnaki marrying somebody or taking on a wife from another planet. So there's a lot of, I personally feel that they were multiracial. There are some accounts of them having red hair, pale skin, but not Caucasian skin. Skin is almost as if an albino. Some had African features, and you can find evidence of the African features in the statues that they built. But I believe some of their skin tones were more of a pale type of a color. I think there was, beings that we would look at today and be like, well, they look very strange. But I also think they were multiracial. But the reason why I say this is because in the Emerald tablets, there's a tablet number 1 where Thoth is told to take his crew to the land of Chem. And he gets in the ship and he takes off because it says they rise into the sky till Earth is gone. They go to the land of Chem where they scan and they see that, okay, this is where we're going because these people are down here, these barbarians are down here. They descend and they find an ancient temple that they had before the Great Flood. They go there after the flood happened. So this particular flood happened over 36,000 years ago. They land the ship, they open the door. As soon as they walk out, these people come to attack them. Thoth raises his staff and sends out a ray of vibration, freezes these people with some type of a stun gun weapon. Then he releases them and starts to talk to them. But the thing that happens is after he tells them they're there to raise this place into a high level of civilization, and they begin to develop this place into a high level of civilization, he then tells the crew that came there with him, okay, everybody spread out. You go over there, you go over there, you go to this region of the planet, you go to this region. And then this is where you see the synchronicity of pyramid structures and temple structures and megalithic structures popping up all around the planet around the time that Thoth told his crew to spread out and do the same, duplicate him. All with the same architecture type setup. But here's what happens. These people in these regions all have different races of people all of a sudden. So I'm wondering, did they take their own genetic marker to place their own genetic mark, just like a farmer takes and puts his brand on his cows? You know that this is his cattle because he's got the brand on them. I think that Asian and Caucasian and African and all these different races, that indigenous, Native Americans and I think that all these different races could possibly, I'm not saying it is, I'm saying possibly be a genetic marker that was left behind by the ruling Atlantean or Anunnaki person that had set up that civilization in that particular region. And I kind of think that might be how we even got the separated human races, because they did a genetic study on the difference between all the different races and discovered that there's a 2% genetic variance. Now, to get a 2%, it sounds small, but to get a 2% genetic variance in a human DNA like that in the genome would take multi-millions of years of more evolution. We weren't here that long. So what happens is somebody, again, tampered in ancient times with the genome and created these races. These races it doesn't mean that we're not one. Yes, as a species, we are a human race. Yes, we're all made of atoms at the end of the day. But what it's saying is genetically, on a genetic level, there is a slight difference between every single one of us, a 2% variance genetically that makes us a different race. And I feel that was another purposeful thing done by these different beings that spread around the planet to rule over their particular region of the earth.
Yeah, that's an awesome explanation. Now, and you mentioned the pyramids. Let's talk a little bit about that. What were the purpose? And let's talk about that, the purpose of the pyramids.
Yeah, there's multi-purposes. The pyramids are, they are multifunctional stone computers, okay? And also they are also medical facilities, some of them. So, for example, at Giza, you have the Great Pyramid, which is one of the most popular pyramids in the world, which I've been to and I've been inside of. I've climbed in the chambers. I've been into the Queen's Chamber, the King's Chamber. It's a phenomenal place, unbelievable place. Now, that pyramid is built over an aquifer. A lot of people don't know that. And there's chambers underneath it. Well, this aquifer actually creates there's a resonance that's created inside the pyramid itself with the magnetic granite. And it actually pulls these ions out of this aquifer, like this physiostatic electricity, and sends it up through the Grand Gallery, where there's pieces missing. Because before these beings left, they went and stripped all the technology out of every pyramid, out of all the temples. Everywhere they had technology, they stripped it or they buried it. There's a lot of places on this earth that are buried with sand that came from hundreds of miles, sometimes even thousands of miles away, and buried some of these places. But in the Great Pyramid's case, these slots going up the Grand Gallery, which some people have come up with the idea that there might have been resonating slots for resonating stems that would have been stuck into them to help amp up this process of creating this physiostatic electricity as it would have went up into the king's chamber, which then there's a stone box, which is the same exact dimensions of the Ark of the Covenant. But if you put the Ark of the Covenant in there, we've already proven scientifically, people have already replicated the Ark of the Covenant here at local universities on Earth in America, and created a charge that would knock a man out and kill him. So you put the box, you put this Ark of the Covenant in that spot, which is where it was most likely. Now you have something that steps it up, and then it goes up to the apex, and then it goes out to the ionosphere. And then you have the obelisks that capture this wireless electricity and transmits it from area to area. Then you have the Jed pillar, which is held by hand, which has then light bulbs and other devices connected to it, which picks up this wireless electricity through these Tesla-type coil setups, and then transmits it to the bulbs or whatever, or the saws or whatever they were using back in those times. So that was part of the Great Pyramid's thing. But the Great Pyramid also did the mass of the Earth, because the Great Pyramid is a 1 by 432,000 scale of the Earth, planet Earth itself, coded into the actual structure and the size of the Great Pyramid. Based on the pyramid blocks, you can get the distance from the Earth to the Moon, the distance from the Earth to the Sun. You can get the speed of the Earth on its axis, as it spins on its axis, how many days in a year, the tropical year, the sidereal year. You can get the speed of the Sun around the galaxy. All of this is calculated into the Great Pyramid. It's unbelievable amount of math that's in there. The speed of light, the Grand Gallery's location, longitude, not the pyramid itself, but the Grand Gallery's location are the same digits of the speed of light in meters. And when people say, oh my God, well, meters were just discovered by this guy in the 1940s or whatever. No. If you go back into, you can even go on Wikipedia, look up Proto-Sumerian math. They had meters all the way back then, man. Meters are just rediscovered. All this stuff is rediscovered information. The math already existed. So when you take all into account and consider all the stuff that's programmed to the Great Pyramid, and then look at the pyramids around the Great Pyramid and the temples, when you look at it from the sky looking down, you start to see a picture here where you actually have what looks like the inner solar system. And when you check the distance between the different temples and the different pyramids on a grid, which I made a very good document of on one of my YouTube channels, you discover that it's an exact map of today's NASA's inner solar system down to the millimeter. So the Great Pyramid Complex at Giza itself is a star map of our a planetary map of our inner solar system, which includes the Sun, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. Okay, so and it even has the distances in AUs can be broken down between the distances from these temples and so forth. It's absolutely astounding. So there's also the bent pyramid. Now the bent pyramid, I think it's at Saqqara, is actually one of the things that I try to tell you, that the reason why the pyramid is bent is because they were trying to experiment and they couldn't get the angle right, so they closed it off because it was going to collapse. It's a total lie. The bent pyramid has chambers inside of it, resonating chambers. And the bent pyramid is actually a medical pyramid. So when you would go inside this pyramid with the person that's actually sick, you would take them to one of the resonating sides, which is one of those chambers is full of water, and you would lay them on this stone table, this granite magnetic stone table. The doctor or physician who's going to diagnose the illness will go to his other chamber that's kind of hollowed out, and then a special noise would be made, whether it's a gong or one of those stones will be struck. The resonating frequency from that strike will vibrate through that granite plate that the person's laying on, and then project a holographic image, almost like an X-ray of that person's body. And then the physician can clearly see, it's so detailed that the physician was able to see what was wrong with that person, where the injury was, where the blood clot was, where the sickness or illness or disease, whatever the case may be, is, so they can then come up with a diagnosis and figure out how to treat the person. So that's what the bent pyramid was for. So, and as you go around the world, you find all these different uses for pyramids. They're really, like I say, stone computers. You go to Teotihuacan, Mexico, which I was there as well, and you have the Pyramid of the Sun, which is also built on top of what? An aquifer. So again, it's 50% the height of the Great Pyramid in Egypt, which, by the way, the Great Pyramid in Egypt, if you go to the peak of the Great Pyramid, it comes out to be the total number of the average land height around the entire planet Earth. Okay? Also, the Great Pyramid in Egypt is built at the center of the landmass of planet Earth. Okay, so think about that. In order to build an object, not at the center of the Earth, but the center of the landmass, which means you have to have scanned the entire planet. But you can't just scan the planet by going around the equator with a satellite. You have to put a satellite in North Pole orbit. You have to put, which is something very new that we just learned how to do. Pretty much, I think it was like in the 1990s, we were able to finally get a satellite to go in an orbit like this around the planet that actually scans the planet and images it. And then all those images are then they're taped together and made it into one big image. So that way you can have a complete map of the planet. But also the topography is also recorded through all the radar scanning, the deep penetration radar. You can go down 30 meters below the surface, so you can get good topography there. So I think that when they did this, when they built it, whoever did it had the knowledge of this. Then you go, like I said, you go to Teotihuacan, Mexico, and you find out that the Mayans had nothing to do with those pyramids. Avenue of the Dead, Pyramid of the Moon, Pyramid of the Sun, all that whole area was there when the Mayans arrived. They stumbled across that place, and this is not something I'm making up. The local archaeologists that were grown up right there in Mexico will tell you the same exact thing. So the Mayans stumbled across and they inherited what was already there. This is why you have the Mayans over there cutting people's heads off and doing these rituals to try to make the gods come back. They were a cargo cult. All they were doing was trying to find a way to get these gods that left behind all this technology to come back. That's why they were so barbaric in nature, because they really were really barbarians. They weren't the technological people that left behind the stuff. Matter of fact, the Teotihuacan name itself was given by the Mayans because they just made the name up. They didn't even know who these people were. They left behind the Olmec heads and left behind information about Thoth. Again, the evidence that Thoth, who's also to them Quetzalcoatl, that's his name over there, who came from Africa with these Olmecs and built this advanced civilization. And then for whatever reason, they were gone again. But the Pyramid of the Moon is actually 8 pyramids. It was built for Thoth's wife. It's actually 8 pyramids stacked on top of each other. The total purpose and function of that pyramid, nobody really knows or understands. I don't know myself. But the tunnels connecting all those pyramid structures up and down the Avenue of the Dead have been found with 2 things in them. Mercury, which is an amazing thing because mercury is very deadly. Why would you have that much mercury around? I'm talking about a lot of mercury. Well, mercury has a lot of properties to it when you electrify it. If you electrify mercury and put it into a vortex of about 50,000 RPMs and then take it to 250,000 atmospheres, you get anti-gravity. So you can actually break Earth's gravity with mercury under those conditions, especially if you put it in a magnetic torus and to get it to about 50,000 RPM. So you find mercury underneath that pyramid structure. You also find silicates inside the tunnels that connect these pyramids. Now these type of silicates actually insulate electricity. So these tunnels now, to me, are electrical conduits that are connecting these pyramid structures together underground. And this may have been some type of massive power structure. Now, one thing that's weird about the Teotihuacan pyramid complex is when you look at it from the sky looking down, it actually matches a modern day computer circuit. So if you take a modern day computer circuit, look at it, and take a sky image of the Avenue of the Dead image of the Teotihuacan pyramid complex, you can see that it literally looks like a gigantic computer chip on Earth. So what its total function was, we don't know. But here's the thing. Giza Plateau and Teotihuacan Avenue of the Dead complex are also, all 3 pyramids are aligned with Orion, okay?
Yes.
So here you have the alignment, the star alignment. The star alignment for China as well. China has 3 pyramids. They also align with Orion. So you see the consistency across the board. These pyramids were multifunctional stone computers that had so many different things that probably even more than what we're even talking about right now. These people had the understanding and know-how to use it. They knew how to use resonant frequencies. They knew how to use electromagnetic frequencies. And they also knew how to literally create matter out of space-time, which we are just now getting into ourselves now. And science has just now taken the first photonic light and converted photonic light into actual matter in the science laboratory. So we're just trying to catch up to where they already are. They're probably 1 million years ahead of us.
Wow. So do you think that these ancient powers that these pyramids had, do you think that we could still access those today in some ways? And do you think that, you know, eventually these other civilizations may come back to repossess them and use them for what they were originally used for?
Two good questions. The first thing is, yes, we can reclaim this technology or rediscover it, because we already had a few people that did. We had Nikola Tesla, who built the Wardenclyffe Tower, utilizing, according to him, the same technology of the Great Pyramid. Okay, he built it on top of an aquifer using physiostatic electricity, all the same components that go into the structure of the building of the Great Pyramid. He kind of backward engineered it, and he actually created wireless electricity, and he also did more than that with his tower. He was able to send sound and images around the planet, which means that the Great Pyramid could have done the same exact thing. So we talk about internet and Wi-Fi way back in ancient times. So that's amazing. Then you have the fact that these people, I think some of them, a small remnant, are still here, but there's a rumor that, you know, there's going to be a return, and this goes across the board in almost every religion that you look at, which have taken all this return information from the ancient tablets, because these people always say that they're going to come back at a certain time. Now, to us, it seems like lifetimes it takes, or generations that it takes for these people to come back. But when you live for 10, 15, 20,000 years, it's literally the blink of an eye. If I can live for 50,000 years and I disappear for 1,000 years, it's nothing to me. It feels like I took a nap. But when you look at the Emerald Tablets, Thoth talks about going into the halls of Amenti underneath the Great Pyramid, which they found these chambers, by the way, recently. There's hundreds of chambers down there that they have now found through ground penetrating radar, some a mile deep. He says he goes into these chambers, but he's been in the chambers for 100 years, 100 times. So over the course of many millennia, he's gone down there for 100,000 years to regenerate his body. So that just gives you an idea of the length of time that these people claim that they can live. And when you go to the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford, England, which is what's on display there, the King's List, the Sumerian King's List. The Sumerian King's List, you've got kings ruling for 28,000 years, 14,400 years. That's just how long they ruled. That ain't even how long they lived. So you can see, again, more information or evidence of these people. They can live for tens of thousands of years. And the only time that we got ourselves cut short from how many years we can live is at the Tower of Babel incident, which occurred in the tablets and also in the Bible. In the tablets, it was Enlil, Enki's brother. In the Bible, he's also called Yahweh. Okay, that's what he called in the Bible. But it's really the same story they took that story from the tablets. But he sees the humans working together, building this tower, and it disturbed him because he realized at that moment that humans, whatever they set their minds to do, they can accomplish it. So he destroyed the tower, and he said, "My seed shall not abide in man forever. His days shall be 120 years." So what they just discovered at Harvard. Now they discovered at Harvard University that a human being can live to 120 years under the most pristine conditions. The telomere capsule will stop us from living longer, those caps that they put on chromosome number 2. But now they've learned how to stop that from shortening, and they can extend the life of mice 3 times as much, which means they could probably do it in humans as well. But the rumor, again, goes back to always that these people who live for very long times can come back, or will potentially come back. And Thoth in the Emerald Tablet says that he actually left a ship underneath the Sphinx. He said, in the future, far in the future, a wise person, if you're wise enough, can discover how to release my ship from beneath the Sphinx to battle this particular force that's supposedly coming. I mean, it's bizarre, but this is what he says in these Emerald Tablets. This is 36,000-year-old text.
Right.
It's incredible that he says this, and that to battle these people and win with ease with his ship. Now all of a sudden they discovered a mile deep underneath the Great Sphinx, another massive cavern with something in it. And so there's something down there. Now whether they've gone to it or not, but I'll tell you what's very interesting. You'll find very interesting. I should say. NASA now has taken over Giza.
Wow. Okay?
NASA has taken over Giza, and the entrance to the Great Pyramid and the Grand Gallery. They control all of that now. Okay. Now, why would an aerospace company want to control access to the Great Pyramid and also the Giza Plateau, including the Sphinx and all the temples around? Think about that for a minute.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so are they back? They may be back already. Some of them may be back already, or maybe, some of them, the bloodline, the family line could be here, and they could be preparing for something or trying to get back into space. Who knows exactly what the agenda is hidden, but they definitely have control over that. And there's another gigantic facility out in the middle of the desert. I was on my way to Temple of Dendera, and about a 400-yard wide warehouse was out there, or factory, or whatever you want to call it, with a NASA logo on it. So I said to my driver, "What are they doing out here?" And he says, "Oh, they're making aluminum for us." So,
Oh,
yeah, I don't think they're making aluminum.
right.
Yeah, so NASA's heavily involved in Giza and Egypt right now, heavily involved, and there's a reason why, and the reason's got to have something to do with the secret space program, and has something to do with these ancient tablets that have this information about these spaceships and technological devices. Both hid the records inside above the Grand Gallery in a chamber. 6 months ago, what happened? They found the chamber above the Grand Gallery with muon scans that made international news. So everything these tablets are talking about, they're discovering is real. All these genetic manipulations, all these hidden caverns underneath the Great Pyramid, halls or openings above the Grand Gallery, and now this massive structure beneath the Sphinx, which, by the way, the Sphinx is over 36,000 years old. I've already come to that conclusion now, that the Sphinx is not 5,000, not 10,000, not 20,000. It's because when you look in the Emerald Tablets, those says that he built the Great Pyramid. Now, when you start looking at the weathering of the Sphinx, you start to realize that it goes way beyond the last ice age, okay? And many people have now come out and looked at the weathering, professionals, and said, yeah, this is beyond that. Now, the Sphinx is aligned at the constellation of Leo, okay? But where it was 13,000 years ago. But here's the key. This is where they get stuck. Take your mind, now take it back 2 more precessional periods. Now you're at 36,000 years ago when the Great Pyramid was being built. Because if you go back 1 precessional period, you have major catastrophes on Earth. You have potential pole shifts happening. You have earthquakes, mudslides, wars. You have all this famine and everything going on. Not a great time to build a massive structure like the Giza complex during such a horrendous time frame. But if you take yourself back another 2 precessional periods, and now you're back to 36,000 years, around the same time that Thoth talks about building the Great Pyramid, now it all aligns. Now you're talking about something here that nobody's considering. These pyramids are super ancient, and so is the Sphinx as well.
That would be absolutely awesome if it was a giant spaceship. I mean, I couldn't even begin to tell you how awesome that would be. Now, you mentioned these ancient bloodlines.
Yeah.
Do you think those are the ones that are actually still in control of everything today?
Absolutely. You know, I had a Major Ed Dames, who is, he was Project Stargate. The movie was Men That Stare at Goats was made after him. He's a remote viewer. He worked for the CIA. He was the leader of the remote viewing team at one time. Him and Ingo Swann, the late great Ingo Swann, rest in peace. And I basically, he trained me. Ed Dames did. And I met him again in October of 2016 in Orlando, Florida, and I spent the whole day with him, probably about 16 hours with him. And he told me that there's a base above ground in Antarctica, still there, where these direct, real people, not the offspring, not the direct source, these Anunnaki people, these Atlanteans, are still there. And they come and go as they please. And when you go to the area, like he told me, on Google Earth, you see all the bases down there. Well, when you go on Google Earth, what do you see down there? You see a base by the Rothschild and Rockefeller Foundation. And then you see every major country in the world has a base right around the same area. So they're working in collusion with these beings. And whatever agenda this is, still totally limited access. Nobody really knows exactly what it is. We said they go and come as they please. Now, when you look even into when we went into the situation with Germany, and we took all those Russian scientists in Project Paperclip.
Yes.
A lot of people think it was just only a few scientists. We took hundreds of Germans, hundreds, and we put them in charge of the CIA in America. We put them in charge of the space program. We put them in charge of military. We put them in all these key positions, exonerated them from all the mass murders they committed. And we literally, America became the Fifth Reich, if you want to call it that, or the Fourth Reich, whatever you want to call it. So I think that now those Germans, they went to Antarctica, and they themselves came in contact with these same people. The reason why they went there is because Hitler was obsessed with these ancient tablets, and he went to Tibet, and the Tibetans told him, this is where you got to go if you want to meet these people. And he went down there, and they found him, and they gave him some information on some really advanced technology. We then went out there, Admiral Byrd, and tried to find out what the hell they were doing, and these orbs of light and these spaceships came out and not only stopped us, but blew up a lot of our ships and killed a lot of our men. Sent Admiral Byrd, one of the top generals in history, running with his tail between his leg back. And as soon as he got a chance to talk about it, he said, we are facing a new enemy that can fly from pole to pole, literally in the blink of an eye. This is the enemy we're facing. He's talking about these UFOs that these Hanabu craft that Hitler had learned how to build from these, either the pre-Adamite people or these Anunnaki people, whoever they were. But somehow behind the scenes, all of this is still taking place. They're still running the show. And when you look at the Plantagenet bloodline, when we're talking about going into Europe, and people can't make the link between ancient Egypt and Europe and how it turned from Egyptians into, or really Kemetic people, into Egyptians, and then into Arabs, and then into British people. But the line does go that way. In ancient times, it started off really as these Anunnaki beings. Then from there, after the Great Flood, it was handed over to the Kemetic people, which were black people who actually had a reign for so many thousands of years. At the end of the last Pyramid War, it started. Pharaohs were kicked out. Alexander the Great took over Egypt at that particular time. It was last reign, last dynasty. He was made a pharaoh. But as these pharaohs started migrating away and out of the area, migrating into Arabia, mating with Arabians and so forth and so on, migrating up into Europe, mating with Caucasians. We go to England right now. What do you see at these palaces and everything else? All the Egyptian type motif. They're directly related to these people who are then directly related to these ancient Sumerian gods, who are the Anunnaki or the Atlanteans, whatever you want to call them. But then when you take a look at the the path that it goes from there, all the American presidents are related to the same bloodline, except for one, Van Buren. Now, this has been done not by me, but also by hundreds of other researchers now. So it's not just me. Even a 10-year-old schoolgirl figured this out, and at her class in school. It made news. All the presidents, Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton was the president. I'm bringing her up because she ran for president, but she's related to Bill Clinton. They're cousins. She's a cousin of Trump. Obama, through his mother's bloodline, is a cousin of Trump, Bush. They're all related. Only Van Buren is the only one that wasn't directly, but it was still kingship, but it wasn't directly related to this Plantagenet bloodline, which traces all the way back to ancient Sumeria. It's amazing. So
right.
That's why I say presidents are selected, not elected. The bloodline is always kept this way for whatever particular reason, whatever particular agenda, but they have complete control over these bloodlines and the path that they want things to go. It's amazing.
So that's why they had all this excitement in Antarctica recently with world leaders going visit there, like John Kerry and the astronaut, I can't think his name. Buzz Aldrin, yes.
Yeah, they all went down. They got the big invite. They went down there, but Buzz Aldrin got shook.
Right.
Because he went down there and he was like, whoa, this is evil. And he made a tweet about it. He tried to delete the tweet, but in this modern world, you can put a tweet up. It don't matter if you delete it. But it's too late. By the time you put it up, everybody screenshots it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was screenshot by thousands of people. And he said, man, we're facing an ultimate evil down here. And there was a pyramid that was discovered there around the same exact time this happened, a massive pyramid, which one of the people on my United Family of Anomaly Hunters team discovered and actually went on Ancient Aliens to talk about it, the show. But Buzz, he was shook. They evacuated him, said he got sick.
Yeah.
But it was more to it than that. So it's these people are down there. They're still there, and they're still behind the scenes pulling the strings. Pulling the strings. For whatever reason, they have the ultimate power, because if you're dealing with a being or an entity that's tens of thousands of years ahead of you technologically, and is offering you a swap of technology for whatever. Maybe it's just resources. Maybe they just, who knows? They could just be hungry for food. I mean, if you look at ancient times, every time you see in ancient books, even like the Bible, where these people were making these sacrifices of their first crops and their animals, that was food for these people, these gods. They would take it. This is even known in Egypt now. They laugh at it when you go on tour. They laugh because they'll tell you, yeah, the people would line up for miles to bring all this food, but the food was for the gods to eat, not because it was going to be. And they would tell them, oh, yeah, I'm going to bless your family. I'm going to bless your family. Drop this food off over here, because they weren't going to go out there and kill no animals and grow any crops. It was a trick. Everybody fell for it. So we don't know what the trade-off is. It could be some type of resource that they can't get their hands on. It could be an element. It could be whatever. We don't even know. But there's a reason why this joint venture has happened and been allowed, but the secrecy still behind it is there.
Now, you mentioned Operation Paperclip and the Nazi involvement with possible off-world entities.
Mhm.
And would you say that our secret space program has been birthed from that period?
Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. Before that happened, we were NACA, NACA, and everything was public. It was like open book. Hey, man, we'll even show you how much money, everything, you know. After that happened, man, the books closed, and we changed to NASA, you know, and people were given gag orders, and some stuff was kept public, but a lot of stuff went behind the scenes. And then when they figured out private corporations, now we can start hiding even more stuff. So they started experimenting with Boeing and, you know, all these other little private corporations and giving them the contracts so they can keep everything hush hush, because now I can't go knock on Boeing's door and say I want to see what's going on. So that's when they got smart. So from way back then, it started trickling into becoming a private secret space program. You know, and one of the biggest evidence of that is with Ronald Reagan in the 1980s, when he literally got caught making this statement, which is actually in the Ronald Reagan diaries, congressional diary, where he says that I'm pleased to know that we can now take 300 of our best men and women into space on one of our best, or one of, I think it's our shuttle. Now, I've never seen a space shuttle that has they can take 300 people into space. Have you?
No, not yet.
Okay. This is official record, though.
Right.
You can get the Ronald Reagan diaries off of Amazon.com, or go to the Congressional Hall and get it yourself. So this is an official statement. This is official stuff. So we have it. It's called it's the one with the elongated cigar type ships. I forget the name of it now, but it's a special program that we have for that one. That one is Solar Warden. The one that he initiated was Solar Warden. So yeah. We have Solar Warden. That to me, that's real. William Tompkins, who came forward on Gaia TV, talked about creating some of those vessels way back in the 1970s.
So how far do you think this goes? Do you think that we have bases on other planets? Do you think we have something going on the moon?
Absolutely. There's no doubt about it that on the moon, I believe that other people are living on the moon already. We've got downloaded now the black box through Freedom of Information Act. We have the black box for Apollo 11. We have the black box audio, and we have the black box redacted text documents. But they didn't redact everything. And there's this one particular part of the black box where Buzz Aldrin and these guys are flying over these craters looking for the landing spot. And they actually say, look at those convex craters down there. Now they're trying to say dome structures. And then the other astronaut says, look at the people down there. I bet those people never get out. Now, it's a very interesting statement to make that, because everything's being recorded. Everything's being listened to. If you sneeze, it's caught, you know? Right. So you don't just say stuff just to be saying. It's not, in other words, they're not joking when they say this kind of stuff. I mean, they were really saying talking about what they saw. They tried to be as slick as they could about it, but they were dead serious. And then more recently, ground penetrating radar just came out, which comes out of the Arecibo of the moon, out of Puerto Rico. And this shows about 30 to 40 meters below the moon's surface. It's clear as day. You don't have to do any editing or anything. You just download it from the server, and you can see structures beneath the moon's surface. So when they say that the moon was hollow when they were up there and it rang like a bell, that's because it's full of titanium type or metallic type structures or support beams below the surface, where potentially people that are up there might even be living. Not people from Earth, people from somewhere else, or people that, who knows. But I think that we haven't been back because those people told us, look, guys, we're not ready for you yet. You know, we're at peace up here, you know, and so don't come back. That's what I personally feel. But I do believe that there's breakaway civilizations on Mars already. I personally believe that when Kennedy gave the speech that we would go to the moon and do the other things, I believe that we already had a small remnant on Mars at that particular time. Back then, growing up, myself, we've learned what? Mars is an ice rock. It's got nothing on it. It's a barren planet with no organic life, no organic matter, no oxygen, no nothing. Now the tables are completely turned. Now Mars has billions of tons of flowing water, according to NASA. They show a mountain on TV with water coming down the side. You got ice caps that are now melted because of global warming. Global warming is solar system wide. It's not just Earth. It's something else happening here. but they've got all this flowing water, lakes, rivers, streams, everything else. But we've been reporting that for years. Now they say the soil on Mars is better than the soil on Earth for growing crops. How do they know that?
Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
Yeah, it's the press. This is official information. They say now, oh yeah, my bad. There's oxygen on Mars. It's like being at 14,000 feet, 17,000 feet above sea level here. It's very, very thin, but it's there. There is oxygen. There's helium, aluminum. There's, carbon dioxide. There's everything you need to breathe. Krypton, all that stuff you need to breathe is there, except it's very, very thin. That is true. But who knows if you're either acclimated or either if you have a special breathing cap or mask, you may be able to sustain yourself for a period of time up above the surface. Then you have the temperatures. It was an ice rock, right? No, now the highest temperature recorded, even on Wikipedia by, I think it was the Opportunity rover, or might have been Spirit, one of the two, is 98 degrees at the equator in the summer. 98 degrees. Doesn't sound that cold to me all of a sudden. So all this information is coming out. Oh, the magnetic field is too weak. Now all of a sudden, oh, I'm sorry, the magnetic field is strong enough to repel cosmic rays, as well as because of the speed that the planet moves around the sun and it's spin on its axis, it creates something called bow shock. This bow shock repels the cosmic rays as well and radiation as well. So now it's safe to live on the surface without getting cancer in 5 minutes. So all of a sudden, it's a complete flip. When you look at all the investigation and research we've done in our solar system and all the probes we sent out, where is most of the probes and everything else gone? Mars. Because I believe that there's supply ships going there. We have the X-37B military space shuttle, which takes off and comes back every 2 years. Where's it going? This is a cargo ship that launches in broad daylight, and they go, oh, it's top secret. We can't tell you what we're doing, but we're launching it, and we're coming back. Comes back 700 days later. Where did it go, and what did it take? So to me, these are evidences that they're taking supplies, whether it's technological supplies, whether it's seeds, whatever they're taking this stuff, to my personal opinion, to a breakaway civilization. And another thing that backs up what I'm saying, one last thing, is the fact that I've done lectures along with Laura D. Eisenhower, Dwight D. Eisenhower's great-granddaughter. And she has been, from coming forward with this information, has pretty much given up her inheritance. So it's not to make money. So you would be crazy to give up that kind of money to come out with the fact that she was being recruited to go to Mars, and they were supposed to be there in 2006. And they sent the handler to her. Now she didn't know it was a handler. This is some real like movie type stuff. This handler was trained to get her to fall in love with him, which she did. It was a whole setup, like I like you type thing, and relationship, and it was then to recruit her to go to Mars. After she realized that it was just a setup, this guy was a handler to get her to go to Mars, and she refused to go. They were leaving in 2006. She decided not to go to Mars, but they were picking, according to her, specific bloodlines and specific people with specific type of abilities, whether it be dentists, different types of surgeons, and different types of doctors, different types of construction architects, computer engineers, teachers, a wide variety of everything you would need to start a new civilization is what they were looking for. And there were records of people, like in Seattle, a physicist disappeared, he left a note behind saying he was gone to another planet for a better life, even abandoned his kids. The police got these letters. So the evidence of these people disappearing off the earth is also around. Some people left letters behind. So I think that these people have been taken away to this quote unquote better life and have been building the infrastructure on Mars for many decades, so that when people like Elon Musk get there, it's a Christopher Columbus show. They're going to have the pods down, and during the certain times, they're going to say, okay, we're living in these pods. But tell me, what billionaire is going to go and live in a tin can, and a steel suit till they die? I don't think there's any billionaire that can do that.
Right.
There's the infrastructure already there for them. There are 3D printing houses, just like the guy who's using the same technology in Japan. He 3D prints 10 to 12 houses a day. They're 3D printing houses with the regolith that's already there on the planet's surface, making structures out of nothing. And I think that they've already started agriculture and everything else. And I think that there's a full breakaway civilization running concurrently here on Mars. And the biggest evidence that I found was a base in McMurdo Valley that I discovered using the worldwidetelescope.org and I provide the coordinates and everything, longitude, latitude, all the coordinates. I have all the coordinates. There's a McMurdo Valley, which was on Gaia, featured on a Gaia show. I think it was Buzzsaw episode, or either Beyond Belief, where you can see tanks, you can see a swept helicopter, but it doesn't have a rotor. It looks like an anti-grav copter or something, because you can't really see now. Maybe the rotor is spinning. We just can't. It didn't detect it in the image. But and then you also see a turret on the ground as well. That's a military presence. What is that doing in the middle of McMurdo Valley? That's one of the biggest discoveries I ever made, of anomalies that I've ever made. So I think that they're there already.
Wow. And with this recent announcement from Trump about this new Space Force, do you think that this is leading to some kind of disclosure, or what do you think is going on with that?
It's another way for them to divert money, okay? Because the secret space program is already here. Space Command has been here for decades. You can go to the Space Command website right now. It's been up since long before Trump even got its. I'm gonna tell you the website right now, just so you can have it, because this is ridiculous, man. This whole thing is about earning money. Let me see, U.S. Space Command. So the U.S. Space Command website is afspc.af.mil. It's been there since forever, okay? Long time. They control space. They control the satellites. They control GPS navigation. They control weaponry. They control if ballistic missiles are headed our way, to blow them up before they get here. And they directly communicate, in my personal opinion, with the secret space program factions, and so that's been there already. Not many people know about it because they never searched it, but it's there. It's even on Wikipedia. This U.S. Space Command. Look it up. I think that this is another way there's too much heat coming down on the Pentagon right now. Another $20 trillion disappeared. We don't know where the 20 trillion went. 14 trillion here, 20 trillion there. It's all black budget money is going into the Avatar project and the secret space program. But now, when you come out and say, we're going to do the Space Force, okay? Now you have an opportunity again to say, oh, well, the money went to the Space Force. This is where it's going. And we can't tell you what we're doing, because it's all, it's top secret, but it went to the Space Force now. So I personally just feel it's not a disclosure coming from it. I think that's just a way to divert money, hide more money.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that one. Now, in closing, I'd like to close on a positive note. With so much negativity going on, the elite's basically feeding us chemicals, poisoning our sky, poisoning our food and water. If you're just waking up to everything going on around you, what advice can you give people to sort of, detox from everything and kind of deal with what they're waking up to?
Yeah, that's a good one, because, when you first start learning about some of this stuff and you really awaken to like the depth of how deep the rabbit hole really is, it can shock you and it can actually depress you.
Right.
And you actually go into something like a catastrophic mind state, where you think everything is horrible, everything is bad, and what's going on, and we're going to be destroyed and all this other kind of stuff. But you got to keep in mind to that person that the human race is very, very resilient. We've been here for a very long time. We've gone through cataclysms, wars, and everything else you could think of. We're like roaches, man. We're not going anywhere, okay? So what we have to do is you have to understand that this is part of a cycle of time. And we're just in a cycle of time where people are waking up out of a slumber. And it's going to happen over the next, so many hundreds or maybe thousands of even years. But as people continue to wake up, and we reach a critical mass of awakened souls on the planet, we are going to head back into an area or age where things. Sometimes you just got to pull back for a minute, and you can't become so fanatical with it that everything is a detriment. Sometimes you got to pull back, sit back, meditate, get out in nature, feel, enjoy the things that are here for us to enjoy if you can, so that you can at least, have something else to put your mind on. I like to travel. I like to go to different countries. I like to experience those cultures. I like to go to ancient sites and things like that. Maybe somebody would like to travel to places that have national parks. Go to national park. Just get out in nature, see, because that has a calming effect. Go to oceans. That has a calming effect. Meditation is phenomenal. Another thing, calming effect. And those types of things, try to eat better, take care of your body, exercise. All those things will help divert some of that negative energy and turn it back into positive, so you can balance yourself. You have to have that yin and yang going. You have to have that balance going. So that's what I would say to those people. Just try to find a balance in their life. Try to love people more. Try to be appreciative of the things that you do have, instead of always being a negative person, or always having a bad attitude, or always complaining. Try not to that much. It's my biggest thing is I try to focus on not complaining. Right? Sometimes you have to express what is going on with you, but I try to make it to where I don't put those negative vibes and energies out there. If I have to talk about something, I have to talk about it, but try not complaining, man. Just try to appreciate every moment. I used to say that I would try now to appreciate every moment, but I changed that actually to I try to appreciate every Planck unit, which in quantum physics is the smallest measurable amount of time, because that's literally how important every single moment is to me. I'm trying to captivate every single moment of my life right now, because I realize how finite it is here in this third dimension. And I've pretty much lived about half my life, unless some new technology comes out that can extend me, maybe extend my telomeres a little bit more. But I come to the realization, man, that you have to absorb anything positive. And if I see a bird fly by my window, I get excited, to be quite honest with you. And those are the types of things you have to have. And you have to have that mindset to see that and see the beauty in those things. Because if you don't, you'll just see a dark, dreary world that's not worth anything. And you'll be so depressed and angry at everybody. And your life will be, it'll be over soon, and you'll die and probably be reincarnated to come back and you really learn the lesson, what it's all about. It's all about love, loving yourself and loving others.
Yes, I'd have to agree with that. And that's a perfect note to end on. Is there anything you have upcoming that's going on with you that you'd like to talk about before you go?
Yeah, I'm going to be speaking at ECETI Ranch August 9th through the 12th, I believe, of this year. You can go to what's the website for that? It's called soultechgathering.com. Soultechgathering.com. You can go there. I'll be at the Ascension Conference. I believe that's in October 5th through the 7th. And there's a few more. I'll have to send them to you, man. You can put them up. But I'm getting so many of them now. That's getting hit from all corners,
Yeah, send me those. I'll put them in the description. And cool. Billy, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. That was awesome, and we'd love to have you back sometime.
Oh, man, I'd love to be back, man, for sure. Definitely, no doubt.
All right, great. And you have an awesome night.
Thank you. You too.